Can you give me a handful of examples of how other countries have taken advantage of America?
I can the trade deficits that we have with most other nations in the world. We have those trade deficits to regulate the fact that their economies do not produce the amount of money that our economy produces. Correct?
Incorrect. What do you think a trade deficit is? Yo, hello, Eric. Do you support Trump?
Yes, I do.
Have you been on my live before, Mr. Eric?
I do not believe so.
Why do I recognize your name so much?
Potentially from one of Parker's lives.
Oh, okay.
Maybe co-hosting.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be able to tell if I've already spoken to you just based upon what your argument is. Go ahead and tell us why you support Mr. Liberation Day, destroy the economy, then pause the tariffs and destroy the economy again. Wow, sir, take it away.
Simultaneously, the way that Trump likes to say that things can and can't happen at the same time, is it possible that I can support him without supporting the things you just mentioned?
You can theoretically still support Donald Trump while not supporting his economic policy. However, your burden to prove why that's a good thing is very difficult because you essentially have to demonstrate that Donald Trump is doing more good than bad to our country and to the world as a whole. But we've been able to clarify on a lot of really bad things, like barreling America towards a recession and just destroying global markets. So what is the overwhelming good things that he's doing?
I'm gonna say that playing let's start with common ground. Playing with the market, playing with things, implementing certain policies to get certain results just to say that you did something to fix the thing you created might not be the best strategy in the world.
So why do you support him? If you still are going to support him, even though he's intentionally crashed markets and barreled America towards a recession, that must mean that he's doing something else that is overwhelmingly good. So what is that overwhelmingly good thing that he's doing outside of his economic policy that still makes him a preferable candidate?
I think that aside from being a very old man, getting close to his 80s, he is trying to implement a strategy where the strategy is not necessarily wrong, in my opinion. I don't think that what he is trying to do is wrong. I think that the way he is going about doing what he is doing is wrong.
So I don't really think I'm getting a clear answer to my question. If you'd like, I can reiterate the question just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Sure. However you can get the most clarity you can. Go
so
for
the question that I'd like you to answer is, what is an overwhelmingly good thing that Donald Trump is doing that still makes him a preferable president in your mind?
He is trying to put out there that the United States is, just because we are existing as the richest nation in the world, we are not going to be taken advantage of by every other nation solely based off the fact that we have found a way to be the richest nation in the world. I think that
so the overwhelmingly good thing he's done is he's made it so other countries are not taking advantage of America. Can you please give me an example of how other countries are taking advantage of America?
He's setting a precedent saying that just because, again, we are the richest nation in the world does not mean that we owe every other country.
Can you give me a handful of examples of how other countries have taken advantage of America?
I can the trade deficits that we have with most other nations in the world. We have those trade deficits to regulate the fact that their economies do not produce the amount of money that our economy produces. Correct?
Incorrect. What do you think a trade deficit is?
We have those trade deficits between them because
I'm asking you to please tell me what you think a trade deficit is.
That the country we are currently trading with makes more off of us than we make off of them.
So it's that we buy more of their goods compared to the amount of goods.
No. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said was they make more off of it. It has nothing to do with the actual amount of goods. It has to do with what they make off the goods being traded.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So a trade deficit is when we spend more money on their goods than they spend money on our goods, okay? And a trade deficit is not indicative of another country ripping us off or anything bad. In fact, a trade deficit is not real. It's not tangible. If anything, it is just a tool that it's used to calculate trade between countries, okay? And a trade deficit isn't like a bad thing ever. In fact, it's expected from the richest country on earth. So America, apart from having 3 340 million citizens, is also the richest country in the world that accounts for 30% of global commerce. Of course, we are going to have a trade deficit with countries that do not have an economy as large as our own. Of course, we're going to have a trade deficit with other countries that do not have as many people as our own. A really good example is Canada. Canada has 44 million citizens. America has 340 million. What do you? Okay.
You're kind of wasting your time driving this point home.
What? I'm not wasting my time. I'm explaining why a trade deficit is not a bad thing.
Are you explaining it to your viewers, or are you explaining it to me?
I'm explaining it to both you and my viewers simultaneously.
Then go ahead. Proceed.
What are you doing?
I'm telling you that I understand the point you're trying to make, so there's no need to continue on down that road. We could continue forward without you continuing to speak.
Okay.
But
I'm
if
saying,
if the people who watch the stream don't understand what you're getting at,
if you understood what I was getting at, then you wouldn't hold to the position that a trade deficit is a bad thing. Okay? Trade deficits are going to be expected between America and other countries, as America has a shit ton of people living in it and a lot of money. Okay? Like, for instance, Canada has 44 million citizens. We have 340 million citizens. Raw numbers alone, if Canada had the same per capita GDP as America, we would still expect to have a trade deficit with them because we have more people. Okay? And also, like, a trade deficit isn't always a bad thing. You're in a trade deficit with your grocery store. Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily feel great that I'm in a trade deficit with my grocery store.
Oh my God. Okay. Hey, real quick. Do you think that if a trade deficit's a bad thing, do you think that a trade surplus is a good thing?
What I'm trying to say to you, Dean, is that just because we happen to be the richest nation in the world currently right now does not mean that we owe other nations a ton of money, benefits, discounts, tax breaks, any of those things. They do not, even though we are the richest nation in the world, they do not need our product as much as essentially we need their product.
I don't understand where this idea of like, I don't understand where this, like, there's no sense of obligation or America owing other countries anything that is born out of a trade deficit. Once again, it is merely like a descriptive tool used.
Other countries expect that they are allowed to put a higher tariff on our goods coming into their country based off the fact that we have the amount of wealth that we have. Correct or incorrect?
This claim is completely outside of the conversation.
Instead of sidestepping,
I would really appreciate it if you'd let me finish.
Just answer correct or incorrect.
Well, the reason I will not answer correct or incorrect to your question is because your question has no relevance to the discussion that we're having, all right? Because we're having a discussion about if trade deficits are a good thing or a bad thing, and now you're talking about this idea that other countries like to tariff us because we're a rich country. These two things are not related with one another, but I want you to answer my question about trade deficits because you're the one that brought them up. If you think that trade deficits are a bad thing, do you think that you're the one that brought them up? If you think that trade deficits are bad, yes, you are.
You can rewind your tape and play it back later if you want to, but that's not what happened. The reason that I brought up any of this in the first place was based off wealth of nations, not trade deficits.
Eric, I mean, listen, we have 5,000 people.
Did I mention
Eric,
trade deficits?
I'm gonna mute you in five seconds.
Go ahead.
There you go. You're on mute. Eric, stop interrupting me, Eric. I mean, listen, I'm here for good faith, productive conversation. I'm not here to talk to children, okay? And you're acting like a child. So let's just catch a bubble, slow it down, chill out, just have a good conversation with me, all right, man? So yes, you did bring up trade deficits. We have 5,000 people watching on TikTok, okay? We just started the YouTube stream. There's already 1,200 people over there, plus the thousands of people that will watch us back in real time once the stream's over, okay? Don't try to gaslight your way out of arguing a losing position because you know it's a losing position. So once again, you did bring up trade deficits. You were arguing that trade deficits are a bad thing because you think that a sense of an obligation that we owe other countries more goods than they owe us is born, which is not true. So I just want to ask you, if you think trade deficits are bad, does this mean that you think that trade surpluses are good?
No.
No. Okay. So you think that a trade surplus is bad and trade deficits are bad. So then what does a managed economy look like to you?
A managed economy looks like something is balanced where we are not just extending essentially okay, yeah. What?
I'm talking to myself because I'm trying to understand your position. Like,
no, I know.
We're selling the same amount of goods to other countries as they're selling to us.
You're also crudely and childishly interrupting me at the same time. And I just sat there on mute for no reason when I stopped talking. But
So Eric, I'd be more sympathetic to your position if you hadn't been doing that to me all stream. Plus,
You
I
don't-
wasn't even like trying to interrupt you. I was just like mumbling to myself, trying to like reiterate what you're saying in real time. Like, I apologize. I'll push my mic a little bit away from my face so you could finish speaking.
what I tried to bring up to you, Dean, was the fact that just because we have the money we have in this country does not require that we give every other country in the world massive amounts of tax breaks. And they can charge us much more for importing our goods into their country than we do us importing their goods into our country.
Okay,
Does
now
that make sense?
well, what you're saying actually doesn't make sense because now you're equivocating between two topics. A trade deficit doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the tax on imports or exports. Like you're telling me that you don't want a trade deficit, you don't want a trade
Because
surplus.
you're continuing to equivocate trade deficit and trade surplus to something I'm not talking about. If you
So we
like
started
to
this
move on-
conversation off by talking
would
about
make
trade
sense.
deficits, and you tell me that a trade deficit was a bad thing.
Okay, are you just gonna? I already said that's not what I said, and if I did say that, I apologize
Okay,
for saying
so
that.
you don't
That's
think
not
that
what I
trade
meant.
deficits are a bad thing?
I think that the problem is, and what you asked me.
So I just want to clarify. So
originally-
you don't think that trade deficits are a bad thing?
Sure.
correct?
No. Trade
Oh, okay,
deficits
so
are
then we
fine.
could just leave that
They're
in the
great.
past. Go ahead.
They're all good. Trade deficits are fine. What I started this conversation talking to you about and what you asked me to answer to you was a question about what is Trump doing that is good for the economy. And what I tried to say was, I think that standing up for the United States and saying that just because we are in a position of wealth does not mean we owe the world a bunch of tax breaks. You turned that into trade deficits and trade benefits, trade surpluses.
What do you mean by
trade
owing the
deficits.
world tax breaks?
You turned all of that into what you turned it into, and it was great. That was master manipulation. That was well done by you. But I didn't actually say any of those things.
Why does MAGA
And
have
you're
such a
right, there are
victim complex?
5,000+ people that will go back and watch this, and we'll see. That
I have a question.
none of
Why
that
does
happened.
MAGA have such a victim complex? Like I'm just
I
up here
don't-
trying to have
I
a good
can't-
conversation with you
I
about like
can't-
how you feel and what you think, and like now you're like turning this into me being a master manipulator. Eric, like you told me that you don't think that trade deficits are bad. You verbally clarified that. Then I was willing to move on to whatever you wanted to talk about to do with like tariffs and owing other countries like tax breaks. In fact, I even just asked you what you mean by owing other countries tax breaks, which was completely leaving our conversation about trade deficits in the past. I was just going to move on to see like what reasons you possess insofar as why you support the president. But then like you just turn it right back around into harping on this idea that you think I was like manipulating you to talking about trade deficits. Like Eric, just calm down and explain your position. You said that you think we're currently in a position where we're like this super rich country and other countries think that we owe them tax breaks. What do you mean by that?
First and foremost, the tactic you use to mute people, then try to reassemble the conversation when you get shot down on something.
What did I
don't
get
know
shot
how
down
it's
on?
how it's not blatantly obvious to the people that are sitting here watching you.
Okay, what am I?
didn't-
What
you
am I?
didn't-
What
you
am?
didn't-
What
you
did I
didn't
get
drop-
shot
you
down
didn't-
on?
Hold on, Dean. You want to have didn't you want to have a normal conversation?
A normal
relaxed,
conversation would require like, questions and answers.
relaxed- So do I get to answer? Or do you just get to ask questions?
I would actually really prefer you to answer the question like, what did I get shot down on, and how is this relevant?
Because I start to answer your questions, you mute me, reassemble the conversation in the way you want it to be assembled, and then you unmute me and ask me to speak on what you just reassembled.
Okay, well, when you say like reassembling the conversation, like what I think that you mean to say is I'm just making sense of the conversation in like in a logical way. I don't know.
no,
I've muted you because you're doing this
do.
like right now. You're interrupting me. See, like I only mute people that interrupt me. So I mean, we could have like a pleasant conversation where you don't interrupt me and I don't interrupt you. Is that fair?
I would love to have that conversation.
Okay. Well, the first step is acting your age and not interrupting me, and I'll take that first step with you.
The second step would be
You have to take the first step first because you just interrupted me again, Eric.
and you insulted me again, Dean. So
well,
you stop insulting me,
sir.
I'll stop interrupting you.
Eric, well, sometimes like
Is that okay? Can we come to
Eric,
that?
you're interrupting me again, and that's when the mute comes in. We just detailed it in real time. You just like got mad at me for muting you. Then I'm like, I won't mute you if you interrupt me. Then you interrupt me like 3 times in 10 seconds, and then you get muted again. And like, I'm so sorry if you think that it's me insulting you when I call you childish for acting like a child. Okay? It's not my fault that you don't act your age. It's not my fault that you're immature. It's not my fault that you rather fixate on your claims that I'm some master manipulator than have a conversation with me about economic policy. Okay. So if you don't want to be insulted by Dean saying that Eric's acting like a child, then just don't act like a child. It's super simple. You don't hear me call every guest that comes up onto the stream a literal toddler. And the reason I don't call every guest that comes up onto the stream as a literal toddler is because you have to act like one to get called one. And I think that's fair. But I'm willing to leave all of that in the past, okay? I'm willing just to restart and just have a conversation with you about economic policy because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to have productive conversation about politics and about the American government. So let's just reset, okay? And in fact, I'll let you just restate your claim. I was about to try to reinterpret it and ask you questions about it, but it is so far lost because you've rather decided to hyperfixate on the idea that you think I'm insulting you and some master manipulator. So let's just restart. Tell us why you support the president.
Again, why do you feel it's fair to mute me, re-steer the narrative in a different direction, and then pretend like you're doing me a favor by letting me restate my narrative?
I don't even understand that gibberish. Like, do you just want to answer the prompt and tell us why you support the president?
How do you think that's the adult move, Dean? How do you think that you are acting as an adult right now and I'm acting as a toddler or a child?
I think that I'm acting like an adult because I'm just willing to put that all behind us and just have you tell me why you support the president.
After you muted me and didn't let me speak, redirected the entire conversation and then said, you know what, I'm going to do you a gracious favor.
I made it very clear that I muted you because you interrupted me, Eric.
You're interrupting me now, but I can't.
I know because I want whatever this is to end.
Live.
Because I want whatever this is to end. I just want to debate politics.
You want it to end because it looks terrible for you because you're acting like a toddler.
If it looked terrible to me,
I'm being very respectful.
Sir,
I'm being very respectful to you.
Eric, I don't think that this does look terrible for me. I don't see like a single person in any of my live chats like saying, "Oh, this is a bad look for you, Dean." I think that this looks bad for you, Eric. But listen.
Is that what you revolve off of? Your pitter patter from your chat or from your whatever you're watching?
You're such a gaslighter. You just said that this looks terrible for me, and I gave you an insurmountable amount. Sir, you're interrupting me. That's what gets you muted. Eric, you're such a gaslighter. So you made the claim that this looks terrible, Eric. You made the claim that this looks terrible for me. So then I just gave you a lot of anecdotal evidence from everybody watching the stream that begs to differ. And then you're like, oh, so that's what you revolve around? Approval from the chat? No, I don't revolve around approval. Eric, this is what gets you muted. No, I don't revolve around approval from the chat. I'm just simply using the lack of approval for your claims from the chat as evidence that you're incorrect. Okay? But once again, Eric, we're here to debate politics. Okay? Tell us why you support the president. At this point, I don't think you can. I literally think that you're incapable of giving an argument, and you know that I'll be able to defeat it with the use of facts, reason, and logic.